Mahi Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupakaramayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Sri Rupam Sagadadam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parejana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiveshakan Vitam Sam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhikanta Namostute Jayatam Surito Pango Mama Minir Madirgati Matsavasha Padam Boja Radha Madana Mohanam Sriman Rasa Rasaram Vivam Sivara Karsan Venasanur Bika Kupina Sriyasanam Divyad Brindaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Radnagara Shima Shanishto Sri Sri Radha Shidagovindadir Prasadabi He Seva Manushmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmani Taya Cha Jagati Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namah Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Rajaja Mangalam Panarikaksho Mangarayatano Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasadevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Vidmahi Vishnu Padyate Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Sare Sare Hari Pare Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Hari Re Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vindavaneshwari Vishavana Sudhe Devi Pranamani Priye Priye Namam Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pishaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Shami Tanumanamashe Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivashesa Sanyapati Praskatade Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Wednesday morning, Wisdom Wednesday. You ready to go at it, Jean? Britta, I'm looking forward to some of Britta's brilliant comments. Maybe Anjali, the queen of comments, will also join us later. Good morning, Natasha. Thanks very much for jumping on. Larry, if you're there, good morning. Suprabhatam means good morning. Jean, did I mention Jean? Thank you all for joining, and thanks to those who will still jump on, who are yet to jump on, and thanks for your comments. The comments are what really spice up and enliven everything. We're so enlivened, in fact. Good morning, Janatari. We're so enlivened, in fact, that we're going back, dipping again. Brent, good morning. Larry, good morning. Dipping again into this well, which is the 22nd verse in the 7th chapter, first canto of the Bhagavatam, where Krishna is described as Mahabaho, mighty armed. There's a Bengali proverb that says, if you're trying to hold on, hold on to your material attachments with two arms, and Krishna wants, for your own spiritual benefit, to take away those things to which you're attached. He wants to wean you of those temporary material idols, so to speak. Krishna has 10 arms, so you can't, with your 2 arms, hold on to your attachments. If Krishna, with his 10 arms, is trying to pluck them away from you for your own spiritual well-being. On the other hand, if you're engaged in the service of the Lord, and the Lord wants to give you gifts, tools to take your service to the next level, to give you more influence, to take more ground for the kingdom, then you cannot accept with your 2 arms. Your 2 arms are inadequate to accept everything that the Lord wants to give you with his 10 arms. So if you're not in devotional service, your 2 arms are insufficient to protect your so-called material assets from being wrested away from you by the 10 arms of the Lord. And if you're in devotional service, your 2 arms are not sufficient to accept all the blessings that the Lord will shower you with from his 10 arms. So good morning, Manasaganga. Good morning, Jay. It looks like the gang's all gathering one by one. Thank you. Krishna Mahabaho. Bhaktano Vyankaro Tomeko Dinner Pavargo Shri Samsara. Pavargo basically means fearless. It means living your life peacefully, simply, high thinking, not getting distracted, not getting your blood pressure up by over endeavor for temporary material things. This verse is translated as saying, you are the Almighty, There is none equal to. There are none who surpass you. You control everything by the diffusion of your multifarious potencies. There's no limit to your different energies. Therefore, only you. Yes, we are exclusive. Krishna consciousness devotees are guilty of the charge of being exclusive. But at the same time, because Krishna is the source of everything, because Krishna is in everything and everything is in him, we are not just exclusive, but we are also inclusive. Tajmadadam devataram. Krishna says, I am in everything. Krishna has expanded himself into every corner of the creation, and everything is in him. So he is both exclusive. He is the only one worthy of taking shelter on. He is the only one without fear. He is the only one who can offer you true protection. At the same time, he is within everybody. He is accessible to everyone. I'm reminded of our little rap song about the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Song of the Supreme, Krishna streams to his team member Arjuna the cream of all the devotees. Arjuna, the things you do every day, the gifts you give in every tasty veggie dish, offer them me with love and see your soul enriched. Cup of water makes me smile, though I could drink an ocean of flower, fruit, and leaf are fine if they're offered in devotion. Keeping me in the center, your karma will never interfere, because loving devotional service is the dharma of the spiritual atmosphere. I don't play any favorites. Everyone gets what they desire, so if someone longs for me in bhakti, I'm naturally inspired. And even if you mess up a time or two, I won't make any complaint. Just rise up again, you can still shine like a saint. The undiluted souls, Mahatmas, know reality, and feeling my protection, the flow of their affection comes to me. They sing my sacred names with voices sweet and stake their rightful claims at my lotus feet. I see, maintain, and shelter all. I'm the seed of everything. I'm everyone's best friend, the beginning, middle, and end. Arjuna, tell the people boldly, Krishna devotee never dies. Men and women, high and lowly, everybody's equal in my eyes. Anyone who comes to me will never be denied. Bhakti Yoga will set you free. Success is guaranteed. Think of me, become my devotee, and you will live with me eternally. No one else can make those kinds of claims. No one else can make those statements. Think of me, become devoted to me, and you will live with me eternally. Manmana bhavamad bhakta madhyagi mamna mamma maskari mame vashasi satyam. This is the 4-point solution to solve all of your main problems in life. Other problems come and go, and so at the end of the day, they're not really problems. If you're in devotional service and if you're in that mindset of living a God-centered life, what are problems, aggravations, sources of frustration for other people are tests for the devotee. They're blessings from the Lord. Things are not happening to the devotee. They're happening for the devotee, to shed them of unnecessary material attachments, to focus them on the goal of life, the lotus feet of the Lord, and get them back to home, back to Godhead in the most efficient way possible. So for devotees, so-called setbacks, reverses, catastrophes are opportunities, golden opportunities for learning, for maturing, for growing up, for becoming the men and women of faith that the God originally created us to be. So the only one, and we're very uncompromising about this, he's the only way to become fearless is to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of God. If you take shelter of any lesser personality, like a demigod, Lord Brahma, Indra, Chandra, you'll still be not free from fear. Think of Lord Shiva, the king of all yogis. Shiva Shankar sits in the Himalayan mountains. His hair is in dreadlocks. He has a snake wrapped around his neck. He doesn't build a house for himself. He smears his body with ashes to remind himself of the temporality of this mortal existence. Such incredible, mind-boggling, incomprehensible self-control. And yet Lord Shiva himself is not totally free from fear. When he beheld the feminine incarnation of the Lord, Lord Shiva was unable to continue to exercise. He had a lapse in his ironclad discipline, and his mind collapsed momentarily. Of course, because he's a devotee of Krishna, and Krishna's appearing
as Mohini, though this is also devotional service. But just to set the record straight, Lord Shiva is giving an unambiguous example from his own life about how, rather than taking shelter of Lord Shiva for fearlessness, one should take shelter of the Master, the Lord, the one who Lord Shiva worships, who is Krishna. And when Krishna appeared in the Mohini incarnation, Lord Shiva subordinated himself to Mohini. Apparently, he had a fall down. Apparently, he gave way to lust. From being celibate and staunch and steadfast, he apparently broke his vow of celibacy, and in an unseemly way, and in the very presence of his wife, he took off running after the Mohini incarnation. Well, this is really devotional service. There really wasn't a fall down on the part of Lord Shiva. But if we're to take a lesson from that, it is that rather than taking, Lord Shiva is sending a message, don't take shelter of me, take shelter of the one to whom I am completely attracted. That when Krishna comes across my path, I am no longer able to exercise my ironclad discipline. So Krishna is the goal of yoga. He's the goal of austerity. He's the goal of penances. And if you do yoga, penances, and austerities and study the scripture, and you don't come to the conclusion that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satya, the supreme Lord of all lords, the controller of all controllers, the only one who in fact is capable of instilling fearless in his devotees is Lord Krishna. Now we have two worlds. We have Parashmashtod Tubrovino Vyakta Vyaktanansa Yasasarva Nasachuna Varashini. We have that world which is always manifest, which is called the spiritual world, and we have that world which is coming and going, which is the material world. Now, the world which is always manifest is the sovereignty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaikuntha means that world where fear is conspicuous by its absence. There's nowhere. You can travel everywhere within the kingdom of God, within the planets of Narayan, the Narayan Vishnu expansion of Krishna, or the Golokam Dham, and you will not find fear anywhere. You'll not find the kind of fear that we have in this material world. Fear of death, fear of old age, fear of losing our possessions. You'll travel anywhere throughout the spiritual world, and you will not find even a wisp, a breeze of fear. On the other hand, in this material world, Loka Sarvam Nibrayam Nabjakacha, there will be nowhere you can travel in this material world which is not shot full and permeated full of fear. So the conclusion is that those living beings who are full of fear, who are living in the fear-filled world, can forsake fear by the simple process of tat pajabjam prapyam, of grasping hold of and clinging to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And it says that even if you're in this material world and surrounded by ghastly, fearful circumstances, you can still, even within this material world, live as if you are in the spiritual world, being totally free from fear, provided that you've taken unflinching shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Marcho mitu biala bita palalan lokarsavam nabyaviret tat pajambyam tat padabjam prapyam yadicha shushtu sete mritudishmadapayati. It says that when Krishna was on the planet 5,000 years ago, fear, which is just lingering, hovering over everyone's shoulder, deserted those who were chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Whereas everyone else was tossing and turning in fear and anxiety, the devotees, having taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, were sleeping sustu sete mritu rishmarupayati, sleeping in full mental peace. And normally, we don't encourage a sleep-like state. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Jeev Jago, Gaura Chanda Bole, wake up, sleeping souls from the lap of the witch called Maya. Wake up to your own spiritual identity. The example is given that a person who's asleep may think of oneself in various illusory ways. However, when someone calls out to them, wake up, John, wake up, the sound entering into their sleeping state brings them back to reality, so-called reality, that the things that are happening in my dream are temporary and illusory. I'm actually lying comfortably in my bed in Spanish Fork. So in some ways, in our philosophy, sleep is to be avoided, a sleep-like state where you dream-like, identify with illusory different types of identities. But in this case, the word sleep means peace, means deep, restful, undistracted sleep, not bothered by nightmares. There are no scenarios being spun out during your sleep where you're attacked by a tiger or you're being confronted by snakes. None of those fearful circumstances are able to approach the devotees of the Lord. And so therefore, in a really good sense, it says, Sushu Sete Mriturish Madhapayate. The living beings chanting the holy names of the Lord, having shelter to the Lord, even within this material world where fear is the main characteristic, even those are sleeping in full mental peace. Maybe a big Nanyataramat, what is that verse? Anagashu Buddhishi Agashan Amarta Shubhadak Amarta Shapi Sangadam. I think it is at the end of the first canto of the Bhagavatam. It says that even in this world of birth, death, disease, and old age, even in this world of fear, which itself is in the Kali Yuga, the worst of all the cosmic seasons, still, in spite of all the Kalo Dasha Nidhe Ashtiyaka Kirtan Yadavakushasha Mukta Sangha Paramvija, in spite of this current age within the material world being full of all kinds of anomalies, faults, and dosha, shortcomings, there is one great advantage, Kirtanya Ivashang Mukta Sangha Paramvaja, that by chanting the holy names of the Lord and associating with devotees and taking prasadam, one can be immunized from all the ill effects and influences of this age. Example is given, there may be a deluge outside, a torrential rainstorm, but if you have some good Gore-Tex top and bottom, you have a good umbrella, you can remain totally warm and dry even in the midst of a torrential where everybody else is getting soaked, everybody else is very, very much affected by the external circumstances. If you have the right gear to counteract the precipitation, you can live comfortably. And so the gear, the equipment, the tool for achieving transcendence, even in this place of the material world, and even during the season of the Kali Yuga, all that can be very easily achieved, provided you direct your attention to that sole person who can relieve one of the fear of birth and death. Kapil Dev, who himself is an incarnation of Krishna, tells his mother in the 3rd canto, 25th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, Nanyatra mad bhagavata pradana purushesharam atmanam sarvabhutanam bhayam tivram nivartite. Nanyatra mad bhagavata. Nanyatra means no others, not Shiva, not Brahma, not Indra, not Vayu, not Chandra. Nanyatra mad bhagavata. None other than Bhagavata. Who is Bhagavata? Prabhupada once asked the devotees to give him a definition of God, that person than whom no one can be greater or equal. And the devotees gave this, that, and the other thing. But finally he accepted as the correct, definitive answer the definition given in ancient times by Parasara Muni. Parasara Muni defined God as that person who is the possessor of 6 opulences in full. That person, in fact, that if anybody anywhere in the material or spiritual creations has any of these opulences, they will have emanated from and originated from Bhagavan, the possessor of those 6 opulences. And so the famous quote wherein Parasara Muni defined what it means to be God, Aishwarya Shamagrasha Biryasha Sanam Bhagamatinganam. Aishwaryashamaga Biryasha Yashashastra Gyanam Vairagyash Chapi Shanam Bhagamatingana. Aishwarya Shamagrasha, who is full of all wealth, the source of all wealth. Samagrasha Viryasha, who is full of strength. Yashasha, who is the most famous. Shriya, who is the most beautiful. Aishwarya Shamagrasha Viryasha Yashasha Jnanam, who is the most knowledgeable. Vairagyash, the most humble. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is defined in our culture as the possessor of those 6 opulences in full. None other can equal him in terms of wealth, strength, beauty, knowledge, fame, and renunciation. He is the Purusha from whom all pradhana, all creative energies come, and on whom everything rests. He is also Atmana Sarvabhutanam. He is the soul of all souls. He has entered into each and every soul as the super soul, and therefore he knows he knows what our enemies are going to do even before we ourselves know what we're going to do. So the Bhagavatam says that no one other than Sri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is competent to instill fearlessness in the hearts of their devotees. And anyone, no matter how accomplished they are in yoga and austerities and penances and philosophical speculation, if they aravindaksha, if they fail to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, they cannot maintain their aloof position. We've quoted this verse on multiple occasions. Yane ravindaksha vimuktam trashtad avashuddha buddhi. If someone thinks that they can become free of material contamination, free of the stress and anxiety of this material world, by taking shelter any other place than at the feet of the lotus-eyed Lord, it is said, Avishuddha Buddhi, their intelligence is incomplete. Their intelligence is impure. By neglecting the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all things, great yogis, great mental speculators, great ascetics, cannot maintain their elevated position, and having failed to take shelter, to abide on the higher transcendent level, inevitably they fall back down into this material world to suffer birth, death, disease, and old age. So aside from Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata, the mercy, the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no rescue from the cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age. Now it's explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Sama Sarvashu Buddhishu, Madgatim Labate Param. Krishna claims all living beings as his parts and parcels. All living beings are his children. And like any father, he loves all of his children equally, obviously. However, there may be some of the Father's children who are totally in tune with the Father, and there may be others who are not in tune with the Father. There may be some who harmonize with the Father, who take the Father's will as their life and soul, recognizing that what their Father wants for them is the best thing, that their Father has more love for them perhaps than they have for themselves. Their Father has more experience in the world, and so he knows more and can better guide them. And lastly, Father is a lot more powerful than the infantile child. So the Father has lots of resources to spin a web of protection and guidance and direction around their infantile child. So those who are of a higher level of intelligence, they surrender to the Father completely, recognizing that what the Father wants for them and what the Father wants them to do is in their very best interest. However, there may be other of the Father's children who think they know better, who want to override or ignore or supersede the wishes of the Father and go off on their own and try life separately. So the Lord says that while I'm equal to all living beings, aham brija pridhapitam, Sarvayonishu kante amortya shambhama aham vijapridalparam. I am the seed-giving Father of all living beings. And he doesn't begrudge any living being. A father, whether the son conforms to his will or rebels against his will, the father will never cut that son off. The father will always, at the very least, provide for the maintenance of that son, food and shelter. But, having said that, Krishna says, Ye bhajati tu mam bhakta mai teshu teshu avajham. Those who render service to me, they are more than just my sons. They are special. They are in me, and I am in them. They are more than just a son. They are a friend, and I am a friend to them. So for such a category of devotee, the Lord will move heaven and earth. There's nothing that the Lord will not do for that devotee, and the Lord cannot wait to gather that devotee back home, back to Godhead. He cannot wait to extract such a devotee from the merciless, pitiless cycle of birth and death. And without the Lord reaching down, metaphorically speaking, and extracting the devotee from the ocean of birth and death, the fate of any soul who neglects devotional service of the Lord, doesn't matter how great an ascetic, how great a yogi, how great a mental speculator they are, their fate is to keep on and on, many, many lifetimes, in the repetitive circle of birth, death, disease, and old age. And any other attempts at permanent liberation, to achieve a permanent situation in a permanently transcendental world and never again have to come back to this material world, that is achieved only through devotional service. Parash tajmad tu bhavonyo vyaktya vyakta yasa sarvashu nasachu navaru. Above this material world full of fear, there is the transcendental world. Those who transition from this world of birth and death and disease and old age, who are gathered back to the Lord's abode by the Lord's causeless mercy, it says, Yad Gatmananat Tad Dhamma Parama. They never fall down. They never come back to this material world. They are gone, never to return. Whereas all the others, you see them go up and maybe high and out of sight, and then you wait some time, you have something to drink, you read something, do some yoga, you pass the time, and sooner or later you're going to see them being pulled as if by gravitational pull back down to earth. But the devotees of the Lord, you'll never see them affected by any of the material laws again. In the canto of Prithu Maharaj, fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, Prithu, of course, was a great devotee, an ideal king, and his wife Archie was a perfect wife. So eventually, Prithu left his body. His wife prepared the funeral pyre for him. She ascended voluntarily in the funeral pyre. So the demigods and demigoddesses were watching from their vantage point in the heavenly planets. And they saw the souls of Prithu and Archie ascending like flame from wood. The souls ascended out of the fire and started coming up in the direction of the planets of the demigods. And so the demigoddesses had their arms out, and they were so excited about welcoming Archie into their heavenly society circles. And the demigods were excited about giving Prithu a good welcoming hug and a nice reception. Maybe they had a ticker-tape parade, some garlands ready, nice prasadam, some foot bathing. But imagine their surprise when the spiritual forms of Archie and Prithu ascended. They got to the point where they were level. They were on the same plane as the demigods and demigoddesses, but instead of stopping off at that level, instead of their upward progress being arrested at that level, instead of that level being a destination for them, they continue to rise. So The demigods were looking down, then they were looking level, and then they were looking up, and they say, what in the world? Where are they going? Do you mean to say that there is a greater world than heaven? The Christian world generally uses the word heaven to mean the ultimate destination. Now, we don't use heaven that way. For us, heaven is just a better place within this material world. Heaven is a place where good people go. But the kingdom of God, and in heaven, there's still fear. We hasten to stay. But in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the higher planets of this material world, and from which nobody ever returns, there is the total absence of fear. And that's why it's said to attain this ultimate destination from which nobody, many philosophers, many yogis, many have returned, have been pulled back down to earth by the gravitational pull, having failed to enter into the eternal spiritual world. So therefore it's said that the process which is guaranteed to establish oneself or reestablish oneself in one's eternal constitutional position as a servant of the Lord in his transcendental world, forsaking fear, is etad nidveranam ichitam akuto bayam yoginam nirpaninitam hari namanu kirtanam. Sukadeva Goswami, right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, tells the dying King Pariksit, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success. Not only will you be fearless when you arrive in the company of the Lord in the spiritual world, but even the neophyte, even in the beginning stages of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, fear begins to recede. Fear begins to subside. Fear retreats in the face of the power of the holy name, just as darkness retreats in the presence of light. So it is positively affirmed by the son of Vyasadeva himself, the devotee Sukadeva Goswami, who was so Krishna conscious, he even looked like Krishna, and he was accepted by all the authorities present in the Sabha, in the assembly of Maharaj Pariksit, there on the bank of the Yamuna. And his definitive statement is, Etad nirvidanam ichatam akutobayam yoginam nipanam hari namaram. It says, the doubtless and fearless way of being free from death is to chant the holy name of the Lord. And this will be effective not only for those who are on the liberated state, who are free from all material desires, but it will also be purificatory. It will also elevate those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, as well as those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. In other words, those who are already liberated, those who are already detached from material sense gratification, but who have yet failed or neglected the service of the Lord, this will be the connecting link. This will be the missing link. This will be the thing that clicks them into absolute truth, absolute knowledge, and absolute freedom. There's only 10 things that one must avoid when chanting the holy names in order to quickly achieve desired success. There are 10 offenses. These are mentioned by Vyasadeva himself in the Padma Purana. He's the author, he's the architect of the process of devotional service. Again, Sukadeva Goswami is his son, and both of them caution against committing these 10 offenses while chanting the holy names of the Lord. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for the propagation of the holy name of the Lord, to consider names like demigods like Lord Shiva and Brahma to be equal or independent of the name of the Lord. 3, disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. 5 is to consider the glories of Hare Krishna's imagination. 6 is to give some mundane interpretation on the holy names of the Lord. 7 is to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy names of the Lord. 8 is to consider the auspicious ritualistic activities in the Vedas as fruitive activities or karma kanda as equal to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. 9 is to instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10 is to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in the matter. So one must be very careful to avoid these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are going to talk next week about 3 perfect examples of fearless devotees and explain their stories in detail. And so even though we're a little early this week, we're going to end here so that we can launch right in next Monday morning to the story of Dhruva Maharaj and how he was fearless in the face of death, followed by how it is what Parikshit Maharaj was fearless also during the last 7 days of his life, and then talking as well about Prahlad Maharaj, in spite of all the tortures and sufferings that he was subjected to by his powerful father, he also maintained an attitude of fearlessness. And so our topic today has been Forsaking Fearless, and we've talked about that philosophically and generally. When we reconvene next Motivational Monday, we will give specific examples from the lives of devotees extracted from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful story of the Absolute Truth. So thanks everyone for being with us. Let's see what insightful comments we might have here. Okay, Anjali jumped on board. Yeah, no fear. Our hashtag is no fear, or forsake fear would be our hashtag today. Hare Krishna Charan Chetri, thanks for jumping in. Anjali echoes our words. There is a greater world than heaven. Heaven people come back from, but no one comes back from the fearless kingdom of God. Heaven is where good people go. Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, is where devoted people go. Britta says the most loving parent always wants to protect and guide their child, but sometimes the children are stubborn. God sees all of us equally, but he's obliged to treat us differently depending on our posture towards him. Sometimes the parent is able to show their love for the child by sitting the child on their knee and speaking in soft vocal tones and stroking the child's head. But sometimes with other children who are disobedient and who are acting in a dangerous way, putting their well-being and their physical lives in jeopardy by foolish decisions, the child sometimes has to speak loud and harshly and angrily. It's not that the father or mother doesn't love the child, but it's their love has to be expressed in a more authoritarian way. Tough love, sometimes it's referred to. I used to sell cookies at the exit doors of Kmart's and Walmart's, and every once in a while a child would come somewhere to get free from the parent, break away, and tear out from the exit door right into the street. The parent would come out beside herself, shouting, screaming. I even saw one parent tackle their child right on the pavement. That's not dislike, that's not partiality, that's how the love has to be expressed when the child is in trouble, when they're not obeying them. Yes, a tap on the shoulder from your guru is the greatest blessing, says Jean. Hare Krishna, Raquel. Yes, Anjali says one can be immunized from the ill effects of this particular age. So we're in the material world, but that's not the worst part of it. Being in the material world, we're in the worst season in the material world, the winter season, the age of pearl and hypocrisy. But the good news is that because we're in the material world and we're in the worst time of the material world, the process for self-realization is the most accessible it's ever been and the easiest it's ever been. Just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, trying your best to avoid those 10 offenses. Thank you, Sundari Priya, for joining us. Bhakti Gary, steady. Anjali says things aren't happening to the devotee, they're happening for the devotee. Things which make no sense to the non-devotees make perfect sense to the devotee. Same thing might be happening to the devotee, same thing might be happening to the non-devotee. Non-devotee think it's catastrophic, it's the end of everything, they're finished, that's all she wrote. Devotee just sees it as a chapter, as a test, as an opportunity to get rid of some attachments, to learn some very valuable lessons, and become even closer in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jay, thank you very much for joining us. Bye, Bobby. Do we get extra arms? That's funny. We're so busy here. We're so busy. It does feel in Spanish folk like Krishna is blessing us with showering my 10 arms. And we can't with these 2 arms accept everything. So Bobby is making a kind of tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that we're really busy here, really understaffed and overworked. So she asked, do we get extra arms? Well, the jury's still out on that one. We do have a wonderful visitor. He's a fellow from South Africa, Radhika Jivan. He normally takes care of visitors at the Durban Temple in South Africa, but he goes off for 2 or 3 months every year, and he just volunteers at some temple. He's been to various temples, particularly the farm in Delano, Florida, and other places. So he had called us up earlier and said he wanted to come to Spanish Fork, Utah, and he's donating 2 or 3 months of his time to help us receive guests and man the gift store and preach to people. He's done an amazing job. He's really doing a great job of explaining the philosophy and giving tours and taking visitors around, and also manning the gift store so that we don't have to put in long hours. We're very appreciative of Radhika Jivan being here. He's been here about a month, so I imagine we probably got about another month left of his mercy, and then we're going to be back with our backs against the wall again as far as manpower is concerned. Also, Serenity, a UVU student, has been a very good greeter for us now for about 6 months, is going to do an internship in southern Utah for her anthropology degree, and we're going to have to be looking to replace her too. So we've had a good run. We've had nothing but 5-star reviews on Google for the last 6 months, but now we're going to have to plug some cracks and bring on some new people to keep up our unbroken record of 5-star reviews for the last 6 months. Shout out to Brent. Brent comes every Thursday, helps us keep the property in good shape, keep the llamas well taken care of, and the birds. He's wonderful. He's totally steady. Every Thursday he shows up. He helps by Bobby, helps it arrange the premises so that people get a very, very favorable impression, and that's one of the big reasons why we're on a roll now with 5-star reviews. All right, Natasha, Britta, that ends our time. That ends our trifecta for this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We'll be with you next Monday with some stories about devotees of the Lord who, by chanting offenselessly, ended up forsaking fearlessness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.